When the prostrate Protestant, when the prostrate Protestant, when the prostrate Protestant goes marching in. Post-industrial age and the Second Vatican Council. The Catholic Church engaged in a comprehensive process of reform following the Second Vatican Council from 1962 to 65. Intended as a continuation of Vatican I, which was started back in 1860, under John Pope the 15th, the Council developed into an engine of modernisation. It was tasked with making the historical teachings of the Church clear to a modern world, and made pronouncements on topics including the nature of the Church, the mission of the laity, and religious freedom. The Council approved a revision of the liturgy and permitted the Latin liturgical rites to use vernacular languages as well as Latin during Mass and other sacraments. Efforts by the Church to improve Christian unity became a priority. In addition to finding common ground on certain issues with Protestant churches, the Catholic Church discussed the possibility of unity with the Eastern Orthodox Church. The reforms. Changes to old rites and ceremonies following Vatican II produced a variety of responses. Some stopped going to church, while others tried to preserve the old liturgy with the help of sympathetic priests. These formed the basis of today's traditionalist Catholic groups, which believe that the reforms of Vatican II have gone too far. Liberal Catholics form another dissenting group who feel that the Vatican reforms did not go far enough. The liberal views of theologians such as Hans Küng and Charles Cohen led to church withdrawal of their authorization to teach as Catholics. According to Catholic historian Thomas Bokenkotter, most Catholics accepted the changes more or less gracefully. In 2007, Benedict XII eased permission for the optional Old Mass to be celebrated upon request by the faithful. A new Codex Iuris Canonici, called for by John XIX, was promulgated by Pope John Paul II on the 25th of January 1983. Modernistic influence. In the 60s, growing social awareness and politicization in the Latin American Church gave birth to liberation theology. The Peruvian priest Gustavo Gutierrez became its primary proponent. In 1979, the Bishops' Conference in Mexico officially declared the Latin American Church as preferential option for the poor. Archbishop Oscar Romero, a supporter of aspects of the movement, became the region's most famous contemporary martyr in 1980 when he was murdered while celebrating Mass by forces allied with the government. Both Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XIX as Cardinal Ratzinger denounced the movement. The Brazilian theologian Leonardo Boff was twice ordered to cease publishing and teaching. While Pope John Paul II was criticised for severity in dealing with proponents of the movement, he maintained that the Church, its efforts to champion the poor, should not do so by resorting to violence or partisan politics. The movement is still alive in Latin America today, though the Church now faces the challenge of Pentecostal revival in much of the region. During the sexual revolution of the 60s brought challenging issues for the Church as well. Pope Paul VI's 968 encyclical Humanae Vitae reaffirmed the Catholic Church's traditional view of marriage and marital relations and asserted a continued prescription of artificial birth control. In addition, the encyclical reaffirmed the sanctity of life, from conception to natural death, and asserted a continued condemnation of both abortion and euthanasia as grave sins which were equivalent to murder. The efforts to lead the Church to consider the ordination of women led Pope John Paul II to issue two documents to explain Church teaching. Mulieris Dignitatum was issued in 1988 to clarify women's equally important and complementary role in the work of the Church. Then in 1994, Ordinatio Sacerdotalis explained that the Church extends ordination only to men in order to follow the example of Jesus, who chose only men for the specific duty. Catholicism in the present day. In June 2004, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I visited Rome on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul, 29th of June, for another personal meeting with Pope John Paul II. For conversions. Catholicism in the present day. In June 2004, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I visited Rome on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul, 29th of June, for another personal meeting with Pope John Paul II, for conversations with the Pontifical Council for promoting Christian unity and for taking part in celebration for the feast days in St. Peter's Basilica. The Patriarch's partial participation in the Eucharistic liturgy at which the Pope presided followed the programme of the past visits of Patriarch Dimitrios in 1987 and Patriarch Bartholomew I himself. Full participation in the Liturgy of the Word, joint proclamation by the Pope and by the Patriarch of the profession of faith, according to the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed in Greek, and as the conclusion, the final blessing imparted by both the Pope and the Patriarch at the altar of the Confessio. The Patriarch did not fully participate in the liturgy of the Eucharist involving the consecration and distribution of the Eucharist itself. In accordance with the Catholic Church's practice of including the Filioque clause when reciting the Creed in Latin, but not when reciting the Creed in Greek, Popes John Paul II and Benedict XII have recited the Nicene Creed jointly with Patriarchs Demetrius I and Bartholomew I in Greek without the Filioque clause. The action of these Patriarchs in reciting the Creed together with the Popes has been strongly criticised by some elements of Eastern Orthodoxy, such as the Metropolitan of Kalavita, Greece, in November 2008. The Declaration of Ravenna in 2007 reasserted these beliefs and restated the notion that the Bishop of Rome is indeed the protos, although future discussions are to be held on the concrete ecclesiological exercise of papal primacy. During this modern era, major lawsuits have emerged in numerous countries in recent decades claiming that priests sexually abuse minors. In responding to the ensuing scandals, the Church has established formal procedures to prevent abuse, encourage reporting of any abuse that occurs, and to handle such reports promptly, although abuse still continues within the Catholic Church. Some priests have resigned, others have been defrocked and jailed, and there were financial settlements with many victims. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops commissioned a comprehensive study that found that 4% of all priests who served in the US from 1950 to 2002 had faced some sort of accusation of sexual misconduct. With the election of Pope Benedict XII in 2005, the Church moved to the right. Benedict decentralized beatifications and reverted the decision of his predecessor regarding papal elections. In 2007, he set a church record by approving the beatification of 498 Spanish martyrs. His first encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, discussed love and sex and continued opposition to more liberal views on sexuality. With the election of liberal Pope Francis in 2013, following the resignation of Benedict XII, Francis was the first Jesuit Pope, the first Pope from the Americas, and the first from the Southern Hemisphere. Since his election to the papacy, he has displayed a simpler and less formal approach to the office, making many political statements and acting very controversial. He signalled numerous dramatic changes in policy as well, for example, removing more conservative-leaning voices from high Vatican positions, calling on bishops to lead a simpler life, and definitely taking a more relaxed attitude towards homosexuality. The current Pope, Pope Leo XII, was elected in 2025 this year, following the death of Francis. He is the first Augustinian Pope, the first North American Pope, and the first Pope of Peru's citizenship.